Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our Kotahitanga Webinar. It's lovely to see so many of you today. My name is Samantha de Coning, and I'm the Head of Practice at FairWay, and I'm joined today by the three interesting people who are going to lead us through the discussion. Elizabeth McNaughton and Marleze Blignaut and Chris Pickering, and you will know some of them. And my role here today is to facilitate the discussion, so I'm not going to take up too much time speaking myself, but I'm going to hand over to the panel to introduce themselves. We'll then go on to introducing our topic for today, and they're going to be leading us through that. So over to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Samantha. This is such a pleasure to be with you here this morning. So who am I? I am Elizabeth from Hummingly, and Hummingly is a business that really supports people through tough times, through stress and uncertainty. So you could say that my career has quite literally been a series of disasters. So working in large-scale disaster zones all over the world, and leading teams and being responsible for some really intense situations. And what we were finding, my co-founder and I, is that actually we were burning people out and we were there to do good. So that's really not okay. So we really started to think about well-being. We started to think about how to lead, how to support people in times of stress and uncertainty. And what we've done is created a range of products to support people through those times. We've interviewed 100 crisis leaders around the world to really seek their wisdom to understand how to do this. So I'm going to share with you some of that wisdom today, and to help you to feel that you understand more how to work through stress and uncertainty and to support others through those times. And I understand that you do a lot of work around conflict resolution and supporting others. So that's, you know, really in demand at the moment. So I look forward to talking about that some more with you.
Thank you. And over to you, Marleze. Marleze is our newest, one of our newest FairWay family members. So if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thanks, Samantha. You almost captured my whole introduction there. Looking forward to this session on mental health. It's really an important topic for us, and I'm so appreciative of FairWay for just taking the time to also highlight this topic for our practitioners, and so that we remember to take care of good care of ourselves. So just a bit about myself. I joined FairWay in May. I'm currently the senior resolution practitioner. I have both a legal and an alternative dispute resolution background, and I'm really passionate about looking for opportunities for other people in helping them develop and grow their own practice. So I really hope that after this session, there will be an opportunity for me to connect on a professional level with a lot more of our practitioners. So yes, thank you very much for giving us your time and for coming to this session and being part of the FairWay community. So thanks for that, Samantha.
Thank you, Marleze. And over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Samantha. I'm currently at home. I think you can hear that I've got a bit of a lurgy or something. Haven't been sick in 2 years, but I seem to have picked up something, so no one wants me on the bus or in the office. I grew up on a farm in the Waikato, and then went into the law profession, and that included working for 12 years in mainly in central and local government in the UK. I came back around about 5 years ago, and my wife and I actually both work for FairWay. She's an ACC conciliator and family mediator, and I am the client manager in the commercial team. So I support practitioners and make sure that I work closely with them to support them in the work that they do.
Thanks, Chris. All right, so as you would have heard from our panel, you really are in safe hands today in terms of our discussion. And if your practice is anything like mine at the moment, one of the things that I seem to be experiencing or asking myself over and over is, where have the simple cases gone? Because every case I have seems to be very, very complex. My parties seem to have limited capacity to handle change, to handle the conflict that comes from change, and especially to find that collaborative space where they can work with each other. And I'm increasingly asking myself, how do I support them? How do I create processes where they are able to participate effectively and to have the meaningful conversations that they need to have? And so after discussing this with my colleagues, Chris and Marleze, who are here today, we thought it would be really useful for us to bring this conversation to our wider mediator cohort. And we were very lucky enough to find Elizabeth to come along. And Elizabeth's going to kickstart by perhaps answering that question. Why are we having such increased conflict, challenges, difficulties, and how do we support ourselves so that we can support our parties? So over to you, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Samantha. And if we could have a slide, please. What I'd like to do now is share with you what is a very typical journey for most people following a crisis, mass disruption, a disaster. And I've worked with communities, with organizations, with systems all over the world through this journey, and it's very typical. And to answer that question, why are we more exhausted than usual? Why is there more conflict than usual? Why is it more difficult to get people to collaborate? Well, this typical journey helps us with that understanding. And you may see it in yourselves, in your families, in your colleagues. We can see it as a country. And with a global pandemic, we can actually see it play out all over the world. So this looks very linear. It's often not this linear, but it helps to explain it. So what we find after a time of crisis, mass disruption, is that we start in this phase where we have sort of the heroic and honeymoon phase. And so what that means is that with COVID, for example, in New Zealand, it was, come on, Team 5 million, we've got this, we're collectively facing this threat. So we come out sprinting to make changes, to adapt, to conquer this threat together. We have a high sense of hope and possibility, and we all get cracking. What then happens, though, is we realize actually this is more complicated and it's going to take longer than we ever imagined. And we've been sprinting, we get out of breath, we feel depleted, out of energy, and we start to realize collectively this is not a sprint, we're actually in for a marathon. And so what happens is we start to come down the graph, and what that looks like is, an increase in conflict, right? So when I heard that FairWay was really busy, I was like, of course you're really busy, because everybody is in this part of the curve, right? We become emotionally tatty. We perhaps don't have the same energy for our relationships, right? Or for doing things for the niceties in our relationships that help our relationships run and be smooth and continue. So we don't have that energy. It's also the area for blame. We see a lot of blame, and then also a loss of confidence. And this is really normal because everything feels harder, kind of like trudging through mud. And because we're collectively feeling that too, our problems are harder to resolve, and we just can feel depleted. And we can hit this bottom point of disillusionment where we feel like, well, this is it. This is how things are now. And people can feel really down, really tired, and also kind of not understanding why they're so tired. And,
they can be for ages.
and
If you don't,
Sorry, Elizabeth. We'll just make sure that everybody's muted at this point. If you want to carry on, thank you.
thank you. And so, you know, things that normal tasks, things that work just might feel harder, right? And that can lead us to not feeling so confident because we think, oh, I should be all over this. This should be easy for me, you know, and it's just not feeling that way. And that is completely normal on this journey. But what a lot of people don't realise when they're in this disillusionment piece is that actually for approximately 70% of people, growth from adversity is possible. Post-traumatic growth is a thing. All right, and this turns up in a whole lot of different ways. All right, it can be a strengthening of certain relationships. It can be, well, we ask ourselves a lot of existential questions during a time of threat or crisis. So, what is most important to me? What do I most need to protect? How do I want my life to be? And so, this kind of questioning, while really difficult, especially in that disillusionment phase, actually triggers us to reflect and to make changes and to actually grow in those types of ways. So there are many different ways that we grow. Sometimes we grow in our spirituality as we're trying to understand everything that's going on, and it can be quite amazing how people can change and shift through a period of crisis. So it's about balancing both the pain of the situation for many people, but also the possibility that comes with adversity, and really balancing and helping people to navigate through that time. But to achieve that growth, there's a really important point here, and I really want you to think on this. It's that if you continuously are going through the cycle and hitting adversity and hard things and, you know, peak performance at work over and over and over again, and you don't take time to rest, reflect, question, you don't achieve that growth in the same way. So that growth, to achieve that, you really need to have time to recover between stressful events so that you can take that time to rest and reflect and learn and grow. And I think that is a really key thing to take away. So that is a typical recovery journey from crisis and disruption. And many people feel a sense of relief when they see that graph and they understand that journey. Oh, that's why my client load seems particularly difficult right now. That's why I'm feeling particularly tired right now. That's why the relationships in my life seem to be more difficult than usual to handle. That's, you know, I've had managers say to me, why my team seem to have turned into monsters, right? Well, it's just typical of the space that we're in and the space that we're in our world right now. So I think it's really important also knowing that, to bring extra kindness and understanding for each other, because we'll all be responding in different ways but have a similar kind of trajectory on that graph. So I'd like to leave you with just one little story. In talking to these 100 crisis leaders around the world, we spoke to amazing people. And I was in Australia interviewing a woman who's an incredible leader in the world of disasters and crisis. You know, I was a bit kind of like in awe of her and really pleased to meet her. She's done tremendous things in her career. And at the point I met her, she'd had some serious mental health issues. So she couldn't lead her team anymore. She couldn't leave her house. She was on stress leave from work, but she kindly took my interview. And what she said to me is, Elizabeth, do you know what the scariest thing about all of this has been? I said, I don't know. And she said, I think my team were 3 or 4 weeks behind me. And I thought, oh, wow. And then really reflected on that. And I realized actually we lead others to where we're at ourselves. Right? No matter how much we might like to think to the contrary, or we might like to hide where we're at, we lead others to where we're at ourselves. So over this whole COVID time, at Hummingly, we've been supporting a lot of essential services, and I constantly ask myself the question, where am I at and where am I leading others to? And that was a really anchoring question for me. Through disasters, through people who have worked incredibly hard as you do to support others through these challenging times, it's really important to remember to keep a focus on our health and our relationships, so that we can lead others to a good place too. So to that place of calm rather than to a place of chaos. So thank you very much. And now we have some more wisdom coming our way, Marleze. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. Samantha, if you're happy for me just to take it from there, then I'll just continue.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you. Just because I missed that part of my notes earlier, just to confirm with everybody that questions are most welcome. We will have some question time at the end, but otherwise the Zoom has the text box function, and you can add your questions as our wonderful presenters talk us through. Thank you. Thank you, Marleze.
Thanks, Samantha. Thanks, Elizabeth, for leading us into that. And I think another key from what Elizabeth has said is that mental health challenges don't discriminate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that it just happens to them, but it can also happen to us. And it's so true for each one of us in this space. So maybe just to reflect on what is mental health, what is it that we are talking about? So mental health is really about that state of ability, the state of well-being that an individual reaches, and it's his ability to cope with normal stresses of life, to work productively, to be able to contribute to the community. Now, if it's so simple, one may wonder, why is it then that we have to talk about? Why is it so difficult? Why isn't it part of our normal discussions that we have every day? And maybe it is because both as parties and as practitioners, there's a sense of fear around mental health and mental health challenges. It may be things like people have a fear that they may be misunderstood, or that they may be judged, or that when they do talk about it, that reminds them of past traumatic experiences. Elizabeth come with a very positive view to it, saying that we could take those experiences and grow from them. But for some of us, we haven't taken the time, as you said, to work through those. So every time we just scratch the iceberg on it, it just takes us back to those very traumatic experiences. We don't want to necessarily go there because it's uncomfortable. For others, and that may be very true for us as practitioners, we may be scared to talk about mental health and the challenges we have because we may fear that we will be losing out on opportunities within the mediation space. Because what about my reputation as a mediator? So that's why we really appreciate the fact that you are here today and that you are partaking in this discussion that we are having. So the important thing for us to do as a community of mediators is to change perspective. So this is just a way of illustrating what is meant by changing perspective, because we cannot change what we cannot see. This is true for our parties, and it's also true for our practitioners. So if I constantly just have that view from the top, and I don't have someone telling me that there's something else, I might be missing out on some of the beauty life has to offer. Thanks, Samantha. So what do we do in our processes? We look for behavioral signals, first of all. Things like excessive fear, worry, mood swings. You mentioned the team leader saying to his team having turned into little monsters. it's a very good sign that something is going on and that they should be taking time out, maybe as a team, as you said, to work on those relationships. Sometimes the inability to cope with everyday problems or minor stresses could be an indication that we're getting to the end of our own resources that we may have built up over time. So a state of confusion, being highly logical in how we are thinking. So the way that we then change that perspective is really about listening. It's creating the space for our parties to tell their stories. And when we listen in that way, it's listening in a non-judgmental way. Samantha, if you could play that video for us, please.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's gonna stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever gonna stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See,
out.
you're not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just... Sometimes it's like there's this achy... I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Oh, come on. Ow. If you would just...
Don't...
A light moment. I can see that you've all dealt with parties who had a nail in the head. So it's not only about the nail, it's then also about what we do next. It's how we problem solve. And it's important for us that when we problem solve, especially if we have used our other senses and we've realized that there may be challenges for mental health, that we problem solve with the party showing the signs of mental health issues. They need to be part of the discussion. They need to take ownership to help us work out what works best for them. That will help us build a track record as practitioners of people who can be trusted with sensitive topics. So I want to also share, as Elizabeth had done, a story with you about an arbitration that I once had. And I do apologize, it's got some sensitive content. So just as a, prepare yourself for it. But it's a story about a young professional who had an excellent work record. And she was dismissed for concealing cosmetic product. So from that, you can also understand she was a high performer, very proud of the individual she was, and had been receiving awards at this firm she's worked for the excellent work she was doing. During the arbitration, she testified she had no recollection of ever having taken the product. The video evidence shown, however, was overwhelming. The video evidence showed that she had gone into a room, they had a showroom, she'd taken product, she placed it in a box. Later she came back, she took that box, placed it next to her car where she left it for the full day. At night she went home, she loaded that box into her car and drove to the security checkpoint. At the security checkpoint, they checked her vehicle and found the product. When she testified, she explained that it felt like when you are going home and you're taking your car keys and you're placing it somewhere. We all have had those experiences where you then go and now you're frantically looking for your car keys. It's you that's placed it there. So she didn't dispute the video footage. it showed what it showed. She had taken it. But when we started looking at the evidence, it turned out that her father had passed away during that same week. He was living in another country, a very poor country, and somebody had threatened to take photos of his decaying body and place them on the internet. She was devastated. So during the arbitration, she called a medical expert who testified about the impact this loss would have had on her and her ability to concentrate and be present during this day of the incident. For me, it just highlighted the impact trauma can have on our mental health and our ability to cope with everyday situations. This individual had a staff account. She could have taken as much product as she wanted had she only scanned it out. She had no reason to take it. She was a good earner, but it was just because of the trauma that she's gone through, that there was this vacuum within her, in herself, in her memory, she was struggling with. Bringing that back into a FairWay context, at FairWay, we believe that we should build processes, and that processes work best if we build them with parties. So we need to be clear on what needs to happen, but we should work with them on the how it's going to happen. And for many of us, this requires us to follow what is seen as a team approach. In Maori, they have a proverb, e haera taku tua e te tua takitahi, engare he tua takitine. My success is not from the work of one, but from the work of many. What that proverb is doing is it's challenging us to think about our role as mediators. How are we going to strengthen the hands of the parties that's in our process? It requires me as a mediator to think about my process both before, during the mediation, but also after the mediation, which I think is a step that we sometimes leave out. We do all the great work before the mediation because we know for some parties it's important to do preparation for mediation. They need to have that coach in the first bit of the run, similar to what your graph had shown. They're ready for it, they just need a little bit of support, and then they're okay. For others, it's that longer run when we're actually doing the mediation, having a support person with them, having an agreed code word that they can say to us at any point in the mediation to say, I now need to take a break. For others, it's after the mediation, when they have worked through all the emotions and there's this vacuum. They've lived with their emotions and the trauma of what's happened for so long, and now they're going home. To what? So it's making sure that we've also thought about that and spoken to them about what they need to put in place after the mediation so that they can be safe. If we don't do that as practitioners, Samantha, would you please share the slide? We are setting ourselves and our parties up to look like this. And I hope after this session, none of you would feel like this. But yes, thank you, Samantha. I will now give over to Chris.
Thank you, Marleze. Yes, it's that idea of what happens afterwards is so important, and such an important part of that conversation that we have for parties when talking about the process and what they need. Thank you. Chris is going to spend some time with us now. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Samantha. We have a short video about how we sometimes take on the trauma of others. So thanks, Samantha.
The problem with empathy is you don't get to decide when to jump out. And those traumas that they experience begin to change you. I remember when I was the supervisor of a therapeutic group home, and I was sitting down with one of my clients. She began to tell me the horrific and painful stories of her past. And as she laid out in detail what she had experienced, my cell phone began to vibrate. And I wanted to show her that I was listening and I cared about every word she said. So I picked it up and I silenced it and I put it back down and I continued to listen. From that day forward, every single time I picked up my cell phone, swiped to silence it, I was transported back to her trauma. My brain had created a PTSD-related symptom that transported me back to her situation every single time for years. Now,
Thanks, Samantha. I mean, we know that mediators are often brought in to deal with issues and stress and clients externalizing the issue, or with a commercial dispute having someone independent of the relationship breakdown. They bring the mediator they bring the mediator in to then shoulder the stress and the issues, thinking that this means that they don't have to deal with it anymore. Which is a fair assumption, given that mediators have skills in listening to people and assisting them with stressful situations. But externalizing clients thinking about externalizing issues can sometimes shift that burden elsewhere. So in our workplace practice, we also say to clients that that talking and mediation should be a part of good workplace health, in the range from an informal chat at one end to formal mediation that's part of a disciplinary process at the other. But it signposts to the rest of the organization that there are practical informal options available, so that issues don't need to be bottled up at work, and that there's a way to deal with the issues before they become worse. But this also doesn't mean that mediators can simply absorb the stress and issues without having this impact on them. So we need to stay mindful about the impact the work is having on our mediators. I'm a former employment lawyer myself, and so I'm well aware that employers have a responsibility to provide a healthy environment for their employees, but this actually extends to FairWay, in that we have an obligation to provide a healthy and safe environment for our mediators. And we also think that you do a better job when you're not burdening yourself with the stress and the issues from the parties. And that's why we have wraparound support to help you to do a job without some of the negative impacts. So I thought I might run through what a good process might look like, including some of the support that is available. And this starts right from someone giving you a call to discuss the piece of work and letting you decide whether to take on that work. So that first phone call will be based on what we have been told by the client, and it lets you listen to a rough outline of what the work entails, and so that you can then make an informed decision about whether to take that piece of work on. We then have, if those of you who have worked with us a lot, you know that we have RCs, those are resolution coordinators. They are there to support throughout the preparation for mediation. We also have template documents which explain to the parties the limits of confidentiality, and where we may need to break the confidentiality and act in situations where there are concerns about whether a party may harm themselves, another person, or property. So that's all part of that practical preparation for the mediation itself. We also have professional support to talk you through any other issues that you may have. We've now got Marleze, but there's also Samantha and I, who are always there to talk through any kind of professional issues that you might have. The RC also can support in practical things like booking rooms and ensuring health and safety. We have health and safety forms for all venues, which we haven't used before. And that includes things like whether there, how many exits there are to the room, and and various other factors that might be relevant in supporting the best room and venue available for the mediation itself. We also have rooms in Auckland and Wellington, in our Auckland and Wellington offices, and they are set up to deal with hearings. And this includes CCTV on the meeting room, which is not recorded, so it's not breaching any kind of confidentiality, but it does mean that there's a live feed to someone else outside of the room. Our offices are also in Auckland and Wellington are also set up with panic alarms and things like that in case things do get out of hand. So we have that available, but if you are working off-site, we also have an RC constantly. An RC will be available throughout the hearing, and will be in contact with you straight after it's finished to ensure that there's that kind of wraparound support, making sure that that you are supported in the work that you do, and that there are no kind of risks being taken with your health and safety. And then after the mediation is complete, we also have a professional debrief with one of Samantha, Marleze, or me, and we also encourage self check-ins as well. How are you feeling, and sort of and going through how you're dealing with some of the issues that have been brought up. So yeah, I mean, we know that some of you are lone wolves. You work best as yourself on the road, but as I said, there is that support available, and we take that very seriously. And so and as I said, we have policies and practices that cover all of that kind of thing, from health and safety right the way through to just even the practical support. We have dealt with, on occasion, practitioners who have become overwhelmed with the work that they're doing. And we've dealt with that in a number of ways, either from just providing that support and talking through the issues, right the way through to taking all of the matters back and reassigning them to another practitioner, to give a total break from the subject matter that we're dealing with. And we've also found that where practitioners take a period away from work and take some time off, we find that they come back changed in a positive way. They are perhaps better able to deal with some of the stress that is involved with the mediation work that we send their way. So that's what I thought I'd sort of go through what we provide from a practical point of view. And obviously that support is available to people who do work via us.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, it's really useful just to be reminded of the processes that FairWay does have. We know that many of you already have your own processes around health and safety. You've got your own rooms, but there are occasions where we all go outside of where we used to be. Myself, I had this is not a hardship at all, because I had the pleasure of traveling to Waiheke Island on Monday to go and visit one of my parties, which was quite a nice trip. But I did make use of the health and safety processes at FairWay. But more importantly, what you spoke about, Chris, was the that sometimes we need to take breaks in our practice. And as Elizabeth was saying, when we have those periods of high stress and we're in that bottom period of that graph, to get to the growth, sometimes we need to rest. Well, I think Elizabeth, you said we definitely need to rest, didn't you? We need to rest and reflect. So rest and reflection in our practice is really important, and being mindful of when we need to do that. but most importantly, knowing that that our internal practitioners, so Marleze and myself, with the assistance of Chris, are always here if you need additional support, either talking through a tricky case that you are struggling with, or wanting to know some information about process, or just that some things are happening for you that means that you need to take some time away from us. So thank you, Chris, for going through that again. Do we have some questions? Should we open the floor to some questions from our panel? No questions at this stage.
If I maybe just can add to it, we, as you just said, we encourage our practitioners to talk to us about when they're going to take a break. But our invites also extend beyond that. We also encourage our practitioners to get in contact when they're back.
Yes. Very important. Yes.
Relationships with them.
Yes, yes. Yes, a break is not goodbye. And if you need a break, we're here to support you, and yes, and to welcome you back when you're ready to come back, and understanding that that we all have lives, and that it's normal to need to take a rest, and to be able to, as Elizabeth said, lead our parties to where we are at. We need to be focusing on leading them to that place of calm, that place of collaboration. And when we ourselves are not feeling calm or able to collaborate in our lives, it's very hard to create an authentic feeling in a mediation if you yourself are not able to be in that space. So making use of those resources. I must say that for me, professional supervision is a must. I don't think I could get through my practice without it, but also the support of my colleagues and that informal mentoring and peer supervision that we have is just so wonderful.
And that's terrific, because coming to Marleze's point around perspective, it's so easy for us to lose perspective on ourselves and where we're at, especially if we have, a lot of adrenaline going, a lot of stress hormones raging around our bodies, that can really make us very tunnel visioned and concrete in our thinking, and it can be really hard to, prioritize, problem solve, think creatively. So we really do need others to support us, to see our blind spots and to help us know where we are. And to give a small example, like how many times have you had somebody say to you, I really think you need to take a break right now? Yeah. And you say, oh, no, I've just got to do this. I'm fine. I'm right. So that's a small example of somebody else seeing that you need to take a break, right? Giving you that perspective, right? But we often don't listen. Yeah. And that's part of being in the stressed state. So what's really important is to set yourself up almost with, like, imagine you have your own personal board for stress and resilience, a couple of people who you ask to just keep an eye on you, to check in on you, who can give you a nudge and a bit of a kick sometimes, actually, when you're not listening or not seeing certain things for yourselves. It's amazing how setting this up intentionally and being thoughtful about that before stressful times can really be powerful to help you through. There is nothing, as amazing as having others prepared and set up to support us through these times and bring us that perspective that we so need.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and Hummingly, you guys have developed some great resources for that, because sometimes when we start thinking about putting a plan together for mental health, you're like, it's just another thing that I need to do. So where am I going to get the time to do the research on it? How am I going to do it? So it may just add to the stress of where you're already stressful.
Absolutely. If you're already carrying a big load of bricks and it's already really heavy, and then someone comes and says to you, oh, but you really need to look after your own self-care now, that can feel like adding another brick to the load. So yeah, we have to be really thoughtful about how we go about this. And yeah, we have Hummingly Doing Well cards where you can set up your wellbeing and resilience plan in 20 minutes and then send that to your personal board of people to help you stay accountable to it. Because in disasters, right, we didn't have any time and we had such huge pressures. We created the tool we wished we'd had. And then we found, you know, with the COVID world, with the way the world is going right now, that actually became really helpful for people in all sectors, all walks of life. We have to think about ways to make this stuff easy. Well, yeah, it does feel like just adding another burden.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Marleze, one of the things that you were talking about was, that struck me when you were talking, was that that having the conversations with the party who's having mental health challenges and ensuring that they are part of the process that you're setting up to support them. Can you tell us a bit more about that? About some of the steps that you've had, or, you know, because you're right, often we are, you know, it can be hard to talk to people about their mental health. And we're worried that we're going to, as Elizabeth said, another brick, are we making it worse? How do we have that, how do we get an honest understanding of where they're at without making them feel worse? Because nobody wants to add another brick onto anybody. So but you know, do you have any advice for us on how we can do that?
Sure, Samantha. And I'd love other practitioners to also weigh in, so that it's really a collaborative discussion. But I think the important thing is to start with self. As we know in most of these mediation processes, and to check in with yourself, that you don't have less of an expectation of person with mental health challenges than you would have with other people.
Okay.
Because if we do that, we become saviors instead of empowering.
Yeah.
So, and then second of it, I would just reiterate that being a person who can be trusted with a sensitive topic. We're asking people in mediation to bear so much of their souls and to let us into their worlds. So when you go into that space and you do it from a place of care and respect, the rest of the discussion will follow. But the encouragement would really be, get out there and talk about it. Even if it means that you have to share a little bit of yourself or have a bit of a story that you can tell about what you've experienced in other mediations, how it's helped people just to talk about this. The simple example is to talk about what happens at the end of your mediation process, as I said. And it's maybe the easier one to start there and to say, what I've seen for some of my other parties is that at the end of it, they do feel drained. What is it that you need to do to make sure that you don't feel drained and vulnerable when the mediation is over? Because if we do it like that and we ask, as you know, here at FairWay, we like to say that we ask and we don't tell. It's really slowing it down and asking.
Okay.
But I'd love to hear from FairWay's practitioners. As I said, only having been here from May, what have people been doing in New Zealand? Maybe there's somebody that feels brave enough to share. We could send you a thank you card afterwards. But I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but also, as Chris said, and as you reiterated, any of our practitioners are very welcome to call myself if you just want to have a one-on-one. Samantha and myself also support buddies for one another in FairWay, because on the mediations that we do, we also sometimes just become a giraffe. And we need to come sometimes down and just have that discussion.
Yes.
with our colleagues. And it's good to be able to talk to somebody that understands the environment of mediation. Sometimes if we talk to our partners about it, it becomes, can I remove your nail? So
yes, that's true. It's so invaluable being able to talk to other mediators within that confidential space of how it's of the impact that it's having on you, and are you actually able to change your perspective. And as often Marleze and I, like that, she's spot on. Sometimes our conversations, well, I think most of our conversations always come around to stopping that giraffe look and doing the 360 and understanding it from different aspects, and that can be really invaluable. And sometimes it's just going out to have a coffee, well, a virtual coffee sometimes, because Marleze is in Wellington, but I do go there quite often nowadays. And sometimes it's just about sitting down and having a coffee and a chat and really sort of reflecting on the self, because you're quite right, it all starts with us. And as Elizabeth said, we do lead people to where we are. Yeah. So we've got a comment on the side. I really value my professional supervision as well as do this in a group setting for my mediation practice, and with a psychologist around every 6 weeks for my lawyer for the practice. It's invaluable. Thank you. Yes, sounds like you have a great plan set up. Oh, lawyer for child. Thank you, Caroline.
I think another
Kia ora koutou. I was just wanting to say a little bit. I'm based here in the Waikato, family mediator for FairWay, and sometimes with the workplace too. Yeah, just good time, good timely conversation. Just about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was sort of like, oh my gosh, my cases are feeling a little bit overwhelming. So I contacted FairWay and just said, I'm not available to take any more new cases at the moment. It felt like they weren't moving, like they were just, people hadn't reached agreements, they were ongoing, but they were all kind of like that. And so there was so much administration needed, and yeah, they'd all kind of felt as though they'd clogged up a bit. So it's like, okay. So that's been really good. So I've done that, and then over the last 2 weeks, just getting through the, I guess probably my feeling of overwhelm, and then continuing to work on my current cases. And then just this week, it's like, oh, I actually feel like there's some breathing space now, which is a nice time, school holidays and things. And I thought, oh no, I won't let FairWay know just yet that I'm ready to take any new ones. I'll leave it for another week or so and just enjoy this feeling a little longer. Yeah, like that complexity of the cases. Yeah, I'm noticing that as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, FairWay, it wasn't too scary. However, when being a contractor and you're saying yes to work and building up your, building up my own work life, and then suddenly having to say no, it wasn't exactly the most natural feeling. But yes, it has created a needed piece of spaciousness for myself. So yeah, great topic today. Thank you. And FairWay was fine. There's no comeback at all. So if any of you are needing to do that, that's all good.
Thank you for that testimonial. That makes us really happy. Thank you for saying that. And as you were talking, I was just thinking, as your mind does, my mind was going through tick, 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 all the cases that I have at the moment. And I completely understand what you were saying about backing up. It's like the normal flow of your workflow stalls. And it's like a traffic jam, because they all just seem to get stuck in that one place. And you're right, it takes so much energy and work to get them unstuck again. And it really is exhausting. And we do need to be mindful of taking a break. So I'm glad that we could support you with that. Unfortunately, some of our resolution coordinators are on this webinar, Michelle, so they might hear that you are actually going to be available soon. You might get a call.
David's got a comment. I'm not sure if he's on your screen. He's on mine. David Robinson.
Hi, David.
No, you have to unmute before.
Can you unmute, David? Maybe I can.
Hi, hello.
Oh, there we go.
I guess that we live in a pretty disconnected world these days, and one of the things that I really value, I think I'm the only PFM provider that's in this group here this morning, is that I've just come from at 8:30 this morning for an hour and a half. We had our monthly peer group supervision with the PFM people. And that's really important here in Christchurch, which is quite disconnected. Most of us are working from home since our city fell down a decade ago. And it's really good. We have a monthly peer group supervision group here in Christchurch with mediators and PFM providers that are here in the city. And it's one of the ways that we're able to keep connected and talk about our cases, talk about our caseloads, talk about, issues that are going on for ourselves. And I just can't say more about the need for collegial support, for peer group supervision, for our own personal supervision. And that just keeps me ticking over. And I'm supervising about 10 people as well as getting a lot of my own supervision. So just staying connected with people is a really good tonic for us all, because we're all probably overloaded with work, and just having good outlets for it, good positive outlets for it, are really helpful. So anyway, and I just want to, say that FairWay is always very accommodating with any assistance that we need. So
Thank you, David.
nice to see you all.
Yes, really nice to see you too. And Natalie's got a comment as well on the slide. I think everybody can see it. Thanking Michelle for sharing with us as well. Okay.
I really love Michelle's comments, because what that process does is it means you're actually setting yourself up to be productive and perform and sustainable over time in your work. We work with so many people who have suffered burnout and can no longer do the work or no longer want to do the work because they haven't managed their loads the way that Michelle was a great example of doing. So thank you so much for sharing that. And, working in these long protracted disasters, it's the people who are intentional like that and manage the load like that who last the longest and help the most people. So that was really great to hear, and agree, David. It's all, and the science tells us that, right? It's the people closest to us, our friends, our family, our peer support networks, our connection is at the heart of our well-being and how we manage these tough times. So fabulous comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're almost at 11 o'clock. It's been such a fast hour. It's unbelievable that we've raced through. Whenever we do these webinars, we always think we should make it longer, but we know how busy everybody is. So I'm just going to thank our panel, Elizabeth, Marleze, and Chris, for coming along and sharing with us today. Thank all of you for coming along as well and taking some time out to join us, and also, for contributing to the discussion today. We're really grateful for the time and the opportunity to have this conversation with you. And if there's anything further that any of you would like to discuss, as we said, we're here, just a phone call away. we're here to continue those conversations. This webinar was recorded, so we're going to be sending out the recording. So if you would like to share it with anybody or just review it yourselves, then of course you can. And on the screen now, you'll see some useful links. Sometimes these conversations can be quite reflective. And if you feel that you need wider support, please discuss it with us. But also, there are some of the links that we've put up here. If you feel you need additional support, or you know somebody who perhaps is looking for that additional support at the moment. But thank you, everybody. Thank you again, Elizabeth, Marleze, and Chris. It was a really great discussion, and I hope that you all enjoy your day. It's just starting to rain in Auckland, no surprise there. I think it's raining in Wellington, but hopefully you all have a warm day wherever you are. So thank you again, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Yes.